Hello everyone, Linda Israel here, and I thought I would share a cute way to make an envelope. So the first things that we've got here is a page out of a book. And knowing that I didn't want my envelope to be wider than my book page, I just went ahead and trimmed down the paper so it was narrower so that I can work with that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I've got a little tray here. This is one of those leftover food trays from something it was given to me. And so I keep these types of things. And I've got a scrap of chipboard that this is kind of what I paint things on when I need to. I've got two colors of acrylic paint here. I have these by Anita's. They're usually like 77 cents at Hobby Lobby. I have light coral and I have princess pink. And just a little bit of these. I'm going to shake it just a little bit, and then what I'll do is squirt it out, and I don't need a lot because this is a small project and this is probably way more paint than I actually need, but I just squirt out just a little bit. And then I have an old room card. You could use an old gift card. It's the thickness of it, an old credit card, so that it makes it easier to paint your paper, and that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to pick up paint by taking the card and just running it through it, and then we're going to smear it on. And you want to do it in relatively thin layers because it will take a long time to dry if you put it on too thick. So that took exactly the amount of paint that I had laid out, and then what I'll do is I'll just lift this up off of my paper that I was painting on and let it air dry for just a moment or two. And while that's drying, I'm going to go rinse out my paint palette and my card. Alright, this is dry pretty much, and I used my heat tool to completely get it dry. Now I'm placing it into my spray box, and I have a stencil that I made on my Cricut out of some transparency film. And I've got two colors of Glimmer Mist. I have Taffy and I have Walnut Gold. What I'm going to do is just spray this a few times. It doesn't need a whole lot, but I just wanted a little bit, another layer of dimension to this, and it also kind of gives it that mixed media feel. Now I've got a scrap piece of paper here. I'm just going to lay that over the top of the stencil to help pick up any excess pattern angels. I'm going to use my heat tool to dry it. Now I've got that dry, I want to turn this into an envelope. So what I have found is if I can read the text, sometimes you can't depending on the amount of paint you put on here. If you flip it over so that the text is upside down, that you're looking at it, and then come to the edges and fold over a little corner. It doesn't have to be much, just a little corner. If you want it to be completely pointy, you can match it up in the center, but I wanted it to have kind of a blunt look to it. I'm going to place a little bit of Aleene's Tacky Glue underneath here. That's way more than I needed to glue that flap down. Now I'm going to take this flap and I'm going to bring it down, and what I'm going to do is go almost 2 lines of text and crease that to make a nice top to my envelope. Then I'm going to go at the bottom and come up to just below, and you kind of look at here, and you want this just below that flap, so when it comes down it covers that top portion. And then the next thing I want to do, because I want to be able to get in here and get the items out, so if you take your paper and find the center, don't crease it down, but just pinch it just enough so you know where the center is. And then I just take my scissors and notch a little V right there. And I may have gone down too far. Nope, I did it just right. And so now you'll be able to get your stuff out of the envelope. So the next thing we need to do is adhere down these two sides. And if you're like me, you end up putting too much glue on your project and then it becomes a mess. Well, if you use the No Clog writing cap by Scrap Perfect, and I placed it on top of the tacky glue, it fits the tacky glues on both sizes. And what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of this glue. I didn't have it upside down, so I got to get it squeezed down. So there's a little bit of glue, and I'm just going to make a small amount of little drops all on this edge. And I'm going to do it on the other side as well. And then we'll close this up. Alright, so there is that portion, my envelope. And the next thing I have is the domino images from Calico Collage. This is the fairy garden images, and I've picked one of these. I've already got it cut out. Here it is. And I didn't cut it perfectly, so if I have some white area, what I'll do is take some Vintage Photo Distress ink and a blending tool and just go around the edges. It kind of gives it a nice little edge, and it covers up my mistake of not getting it trimmed perfectly. Now, if you don't have distress ink, another thing that you could do is take a Sharpie and go around the edges. Just hold the Sharpie, I'll kind of show you without doing it. Hold the Sharpie upright and just kind of go around the edge, and that'll give it a nice dark edge as well. I'm going to go around this punched shape. I like to take my scraps of paper and get out my punches and make a bunch of punch shapes so that when I am ready to make something, I have shapes ready to go and I'm not spending time trying to make some. I also take words into my silhouette program and cut a shape around it, and then I can have these words to work with as well. Alright, so all my pieces have had some distress ink added to it. So the next thing I'm going to do is using this really fine tip, because I don't want this thin paper to warp. So I'm just putting a small amount of glue around the perimeter. It doesn't take much to get it to attach. And there's, I don't know if you can even see it, but there's a small amount of glue on here. Now I'm just going to take this little image and put it on top of this rectangle or fancy little image. And then I've got a little heart here and the belief, and we're going to put a little bit of glue on the back side of those as well. So what this is going to do is it's going to be the flap that when you are opening and closing this envelope, it will stay in place. So what I'm going to do is, I need a little bit more glue, is figure out how far up, so no farther than that. And I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on here. Make sure I'm lined up in the center. And then I've got some eyelash trim here. So I'm going to cut a little piece of this. I'm going to lay it down over here on the heart. I'm going to use a generous amount of glue because I want it to hold that fiber in place. And if I put just a tiny, tiny amount, then it will slip out from underneath. I'll press that for a moment. I've got a couple of little flowers that I want to stick on here, so I'm just looking to see where I want to put them. That looks good to me. So I'm just going to put a drop of glue down. I've got some little flat back rhinestones, and I'm going to put a little drop of glue in the center of each flower. It doesn't take a lot, and with this little writing tip, I can put exactly how much I need, and I don't have to worry about it oozing out everywhere. Now, if I want to have more distinction on the edges, I can go around it with some vintage photo. That will help darken that up a little bit. I think it's dried just enough that I should be able to flip that right under there. And there is a painted, embellished envelope with no sewing. If you like the look of sewing marks around there, but you don't have a sewing machine, another thing you can do is just use a pen. I've got an artist pen. You could also use a Sharpie fine point. And what you can do is just make little stitch marks. So it has the look of stitch marks without sewing it. So there was two different versions of that. I hope you enjoyed seeing this video on how to make the envelope, how to use the no clog writing tip for small things, painting on the envelope, etc. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. If you haven't already, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Comment below if you have any questions, and of course, check out the description box for links to the products that I used today. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Bye.